Good evening. This is the Board of Selectmen's meeting, remote meeting of December 2nd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. We apologize for being a few minutes late. Please ask if anybody is recording the meeting and announce that LakeCAM is taping the meeting. In accordance with the Governor's order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, relating to 2020 COVID-19 outbreak emergency, the December 2nd, 2020 public meeting of the Board of Selectmen shall be physically closed to the public to avoid group congregation. However, to view this meeting in progress, please go to facebook.com/LakeCAM. You do not need a Facebook account to view this meeting. This meeting will be recorded and available to be viewed at a later date. Okay. As a preliminary matter, my name is Rich LakeCAM. I'm the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. Please permit me to confirm that all members and staff persons anticipating the agenda are present and can hear me. Leah Fabian, Selectman.
Present.
Brian Day.
Present.
We got Galinda Dunphy, HR Director.
Here.
We got Tracy Craig McGee, Executive Assistant to the Selectmen.
Here.
And we have Todd Hassett, Town Accountant.
Here.
And we have John Oliveri, the Assessors Chairman.
Here.
And we have Harold. I don't know what I call you, Harold.
Last name is pronounced Scheid, but
Principal
And you
We'll leave
assessor.
the title?
Principal assessor.
Principal Assessor, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next item on the agenda is 6:30 F21 rate classification hearing. The Board of Selectmen, in compliance with provisions of General Law, Chapter 40, Section 56, is amended, we conduct a public hearing to determine the percentage of the local tax levy to be borne by each class of real property and personal property for fiscal year 2021 on Wednesday, December 2nd at 6:30 p.m. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to open the hearing.
So moved.
second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Baby and I.
Day aye.
LaCamera, aye. Okay, Harel, I guess you're up, or John's up to give an overview of.
Yeah, I'll start off and take literally 10 seconds here. Thank you to the Board of Selectmen for giving us the opportunity to present to you this evening. The Board of Assessors did meet earlier today and voted to recommend keeping a single tax rate. And Harald, at this point, Scheid, the Principal Assessor, will present the hearing information. So Harald, it's off to you.
All right. If I have your permission, I'm going to share a screen with you and walk you through it. All right. So, Right Town, Lakeville, December 2nd, here we are at the end of a long year, long in many ways, but aside from COVID, in the assessment world, there's a lot that happens between the first of the year and the end of the year when we really put a wrap on all of our year's work here at the tax classification hearing. Thought I'd walk you through this document, and by all means, stop me if you have any questions. The whole process begins early in the year when the town prepares its annual budget for the upcoming fiscal year. While all of that is happening, we're busy in the assessor's office, maintaining our assessment records, interacting with taxpayers on a host of different issues, getting through excise billings and appeal periods. Long about summer, we begin inspecting all of our new construction. Actually, in Lakeville, with everything, all the construction that's been going on, that's been an almost all year round process. But we, by the end of the summer, we try to bring a conclusion to all of our inspection work, build out tax records for all of the new homes and condominiums and commercial buildings. In long about September, I conduct what we've referred to as an assessment to sale ratio study. That study informs us about our current assessments relative to sales that have transpired in the year preceding. And if we, through a fairly elaborate analysis, determine that our assessments have fallen off mark, that is, are low relative to sales that have occurred, we're compelled by law and the Department of Revenue to conduct a revaluation of all properties. That activity takes us through September and October, and long about the end of October, I submit all of my reports to the Department of Revenue. They review my submittals, and at the end of that process, give us a pass on our new valuations or proposed valuations. With that behind us, we are then in a position to begin talking tax rates. And that brings us to tonight's meeting. We have the assessments anchored. They're all in the system, ready to go. They're waiting for that magic number we call a tax rate. The two multiplied times each other yield the annual tax that taxpayers will see on their January tax bills. So I'll pause for a second. Any questions at this point? That's pretty straightforward. And if you've been through this drill in the past, you're familiar with much of what I'll be talking about in this session. The next page provides for you some common terminology that we talk about when we're setting tax rates. And I'm actually going to take you down to the block here titled Fiscal Year 2021 Levy Limit and Amount to be Raised. What this is a series of calculations that, when added up, brings us to a number that informs us about the maximum number of dollars that can be raised in Lakeville, property tax dollars that can be raised in Lakeville to help fund the budget. Let me back up for a second. And this is really for the viewing public. The town budget is funded from a number of sources, the property tax being one of several. We have state aid that comes to us on our cherry sheets. We have non-property tax receipts, motor vehicle excise, various fees, and interest income, and all of that revenue helps pay for the services that are funded through the budget. But by far, the property tax covers the lion's share of the town's revenue needs. So when we talk about a levy, I'll take you down to the FY 2021 levy limit. That $25,893,680 is what is the figure under Proposition 2.5 that tells us what the maximum number of tax dollars we can raise can be. The levy ceiling, I'm almost inclined to take that out, because in Lakeville, we're so far away from reaching our levy ceiling. Under Proposition 2.5, the levy ceiling is the absolute maximum number of dollars that can be raised. before it's before we're at the end of the road and no further tax increases can be levied. And that levy ceiling is basically a function of the town's valuation and 2.5% of that valuation. So disregard that for the moment. It's just there to, I guess, for a discussion point. But Lakeville is, like I said, very far removed from our levy ceiling, so there's little concern that we should have about coming to the end of the line under Prop 2.5. I just concluded a classification hearing in another town just before I came on with Lakeville, where they are ominously close to their levy ceiling. In fact, the trajectory would indicate that in the next 2 to 3 years, they'll hit their ceiling, and when they hit their ceiling, we will be in that community no longer able to raise property taxes. So next amount, levy to be raised. This is the actual amount of tax revenue that we're looking to raise this year. You'll see it's a titch under the maximum limit, or the levy limit, to the tune of about $19,970. I should point out that we're truly not leaving that money on the table, because if we were to raise the projected tax rate by 1 cent, when you play that against the valuation of town properties, we would actually then exceed the maximum allowable levy. So I'll pause for a second. Any questions here? Okay. So the complexion of our tax base is revealed in the on the bottom of this page, where we look at the valuation breakdown. As we all know, Lakeville is predominantly a residential community. We do have a fairly healthy commercial and industrial sector, but it is by far dwarfed by the residential sector. Basically 86, almost 86.5% of our taxes are derived from the residential class. This is important because when we look at the potential for shifting a tax burden, you'll see in the next paragraph, this dynamic that we saw up here suggests that it would take about a 7% increase in commercial taxes to yield about a 1% reduction in residential taxes. So given that disparity, to get any sort of a significant residential tax reduction, we would have to greatly increase commercial and industrial taxes. If the town were to entertain that down the road, I would hope that we would have really a lengthy discussion, perhaps over several meetings, to make sure we have good input before making that sort of move. You just heard Chairman Oliveri suggest that or indicate that the Board of Assessors recommends that you follow past practice and you adopt a uniform tax rate. Any questions at this point?
One question, Harold, if I may.
Sure.
It might be an oversimplified question, and please don't spend much time explaining if it is, but is there a general rule where you would say, geez, if Lakeville was more 20%, 25% commercial industrial, then it's better to entertain that kind of shift, or is it really a much deeper conversation?
It is a much deeper conversation. Lakeville is actually, when we look at these percentages, is probably on the cusp of falling into a collection of municipalities that do shift tax rates. Typically, I see kind of a 20-80 split as